I'm Malachi.
I'm Samuel.
We'll be exploring the Great Awakening, and we're glad you're joining us.
We do recommend watching OutOfShadows, the Krayzie Bone interview called Truth Talk, where he exposes the music industry, Planned Parenthood Exposed by Center for Medical Progress, as soon as possible if you haven't seen it already. We'll also link it down below as well, so you can have a better understanding of the kind of depth we cover here. Welcome to the Veranda Report.
So why can't you ignore politics today? Well, from health organizations to movies, our sports, music, and social medias have all been subjected to political agendas and biases. To twist things up today in Twitter, one of top trending in politics was #JesusMatters. Let's do a quick brush for politics in our sports. The NBA continues to support the Chinese Communist Party as it chooses to allow pre-approved social justice slogans and restrict slogans in support of the U.S. It will not permit any criticism of the CCP. Luckily, GOP Senator John Kennedy has proposed a bill to possibly stop the corporate politics. The WNBA had the Seattle Storm in 2017 organize a pre-game rally in support of Planned Parenthood, raising $41,790. That is enough to fund an estimated 64 abortions. With the now Take a Seat, Take a Stand program, all the teams can sell tickets which donate $5 of the ticket cost to different organizations, Planned Parenthood being on the list. As for name changes, the NFL's Washington Redskins caved into the political pressure as several other teams are mulling over options. This is being pushed by FedEx, PepsiCo, and Nike, along with others, which is pushed by investors, so it seems to be coming down to money. And then there's the Black National Anthem. Out of all the issues that could have been addressed, they chose to sing a song against injustice for police brutality and Black Lives Matter. Our first guest and friend, Thumper Rodriguez, covered this quite well. Let's get his take on this topic.
First of all, we as a country, we stand behind one song. It's called the Star Spangled Banner. It's the national anthem. It applies to every race, creed, and culture that belongs in this country, past, present, and future. We have one national anthem. And the fact that the NFL is claiming they're going to, and I've never heard of this before the first game of every kickoff of every week one this year, they're going to play the Black National Anthem.
Right.
First of all, that's segregation and racism in itself. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King didn't take a bullet to desegregate this country for modern PC America to resegregate it. Amen, I don't like the ideal of the term black community. We have one community. If you want to separate yourself from the rest of us, then fine, I'm going to look at you as a racist and a bigot because you don't want to be a part of the bigger picture.
Speaking of the bigger picture, let's go to Samuel as we take a look at the changes to voting laws nationally and in the state of Oklahoma.
The Supreme Court recently ruled in favor of the states reserving the right to penalize electoral voters that are unfaithful to the popular vote. The court clarifying the electoral voters have no discretion on which candidates they choose, granting transparency to the people. There is a gut feeling that this is a slippery slope towards devaluing and eventually eliminating the electoral colleges. In my perspective, this precedent may possibly pose a problem by paving the path for progressively more permanent penalties applied for the purposes of properly propagating a potential push for electing presidents by popular vote. Presently, that's too much power to the people, in my opinion. The manipulation of voting during the Voldemort ailment is concerning. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt and the Oklahoma Supreme Court ensured that during the pandemic, absentee ballots will no longer need to be notarized. By June 4th, 2020, there were already more than 66,000 absentee ballots, and voters still had until June 23rd to request a ballot.
We'll go on a deeper dive on State Question 802 as we predict that the Fairness Project will be the lead financial supporter to the passing of the expansion on Obamacare. Until then, we'll go into asking Thumper about his opinion on the Electoral College and then discuss his thoughts about getting more of the community involved in politics.
I support absentee balloting in a sense that you have to apply for it, so it's not just blanketed shipped. I don't like mail order voting, because you can't track it. Mm-hmm. We have seen reports from different news organizations where, especially like in Las Vegas, where you have postal workers just throwing them away, finding them in dumpsters, and that's where you have voter fraud. Mm-hmm. And I also have a belief that if the mainstream media is going to push back against voter fraud, then there's probably abundant amount of voter fraud. I voted for President Trump for some of the things that he stood for, halting illegal immigration, protecting our borders, aka the wall, stopping the encroachment and threat of China on our economy, and the physical threat from North Korea, and ending the Affordable Care Act. Everything that I voted for President Trump, he has done, which has guaranteed me to re-vote for him.
So, Thumper, right quick,
Yes.
our new episode that's coming out is basically on the premise of why you can't ignore politics anymore. And definitely in a college town, one of our biggest obstacles is trying to get people more interested and more involved in something that definitely affects their life. What would your position be on that?
Well, the problem with getting more people involved in politics is, which they need to be involved in. The number one thing I try to tell people is if you don't vote, then you really don't have a right to complain about Trump or Obama or Bush. If you don't vote, then you can't complain that there's too much police brutality or there's unneeded parking tickets or anything like that. And voting is important. But the problem that we have in America today is most of Gen Y or millennials are fed propaganda or misinformation, and they go into these voting booths with an ideal that they're trying to end systemic racism when racism systemically hasn't existed in 60 or 70 years in this country. But they just regurgitate whatever they hear on The Daily Show or Bill Maher or MSNBC.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because these individuals, these young kids who we want to get voting, they don't want to really educate themselves. We live in a day and age where kids don't want to pick up a book to read. They'll just pull out their phone and Google it. Well, that's not a bad thing. The problem with that is most of the time Google takes you to Wikipedia, which isn't run by a secure organization. I can change something on Wikipedia. And if someone goes and, for instance, someone changes on Wikipedia even for 8 hours that Abraham Lincoln was a Democrat, which he was not, and 80,000 to 150,000 voting people in the age of 18 to 19 read that, they're going to go in thinking Joe Biden is the party, it belongs to the party of desegregation and anti-slavery, when that's not the point. When you have so many younger people ecstatic and excited about the things that AOC says, not realizing that, and I don't want to attack her as an individual, I'm sure she's a nice individual personally, but her politics are nonsensical and rudimentary, and quite frankly, they're asinine to say the least. She wanted to create a Green Deal that would, bankrupt the economy, and quite frankly, even if we went with that new Green Deal, the world's economy couldn't even pay for it.
Right.
So I do think that we need to get more people voting, and that's what I will say the Democrats and the left do. They get out there and they motivate people to vote. They get in partnerships with MTV News to rock the vote, but the problem with that is they don't go out there and say, hey, I don't know if you're going to be a Republican or a conservative, a liberal, a Democrat, or a libertarian or whatever, but please get out and vote. They literally go, hey, go rock the vote. Here's a sign up for the Democratic Party. The people that I would like to get to vote, which would be conservative Americans, honestly feel after 8 years of being oppressed by Obama that their voice isn't going to count. And even when I was younger, before I was allowed to vote, I used to think to myself, if everyone that said my vote didn't count were to vote, they would have the largest voice in America.